All right. Well, good evening and welcome to TEDxRegenAll. My name is Eric Sauder. I am the founder and director of RegenAll and work with a really amazing team that's helped to pull this event together tonight. I'll share a bit more about RegenAll in a minute, but I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of the night. So this is a TEDx event. Many of you are probably familiar with TED. TEDx events are independently organized by groups all around the world, and so we get to participate in that. Tonight's particular license is through TEDx, through TED's TEDx Countdown series. So these are specifically climate-themed talks that were aligned with the COP26 event in Scotland. And so you can see all the yellow dots there of wonderful cities that we're joining with. It might be the first time that Lancaster has been on a global map like this for some type of climate leadership, but we're going to try to make sure that it's not the last. So I want to frame where we are and why we're doing this to start off. This is an image of every year's average temperature since 1895. Starting on the left, and as we go toward the right, we see darker blues are cooler years, darker reds are warmer years, and you can see that it keeps heating and heating. And these trends, of course, line up with our CO2 emissions or changes in land use. And the core problem here is that if every person in the world lived like us, we'd need 5 Earths to support that kind of activity. So if you're into Earth counting, that's a couple more than we've got. So that's the ground basis for why we're doing this. Why does it matter? Because that kind of risk by 2050 puts 1/3 of all plant and animal species at risk of extinction. It will displace 200 million refugees. And if you only really care about money, it's going to shave $23 trillion off of global annual GDP. So this is a really big deal, right? It's not that we haven't tried to do lots of things about this. We've all felt really guilty about the things that we do as individuals. We try to recycle more and turn down the thermostat. Here in 2020, with COVID, we experienced some of the largest changes that we could ever imagine as a global society. And guess what? Emissions only dropped by 6%. I guarantee this year they've been back up to where they were. So to me, that says individual changes alone aren't going to solve the climate crisis. We've also been hoping that governments will step up in really big ways. We've hoped for greater national climate legislation, and we've seen here at the COP26 event, again, kicking the can down the road at a global scale. Good things are happening, but really slowly. And it's not like solutions don't exist either. There's a wonderful organization called Project Drawdown that's categorized the top 100 solutions for reversing global warming. The exciting thing here is that there is a way out globally. There are things that we can do. And if you look at the graph, there's all kinds of solutions. And there's no single solution that's the one thing that we have to do. You can also notice that these savings pay back about 2.5 times by 2050. So it really makes even economic sense to do this kind of work, even when you include the solutions that don't have a positive economic return individually. So there's a way out globally. We know what we could do. One of the things that is a big takeaway for me looking at the drawdown solutions is that 12 of those top 20 are related to land and food. To me, these are solutions that are deeply connected to our rural communities, right? And so much of our work with climate has been focused in cities, and for good reason. There's a lot to do there. But through regenerative ag, through land management, through conservation, there's a lot of work that is necessary from our rural communities as well. So this is really where I've started to ask the question, what if we're solving the climate crisis at the wrong scale? And where I've really started thinking about a more regional approach to climate action. And that's how we get here, and that's the origin of RegenAll. We unite communities to identify and implement local climate solutions for a more resilient future. We work with households and businesses and communities to really figure out where emissions are coming from and develop climate action plans that help make real progress. And we do that at this regional scale where we can better understand our differences, where we have a shot at working through local politics, and have a chance to understand what a better and more resilient future could look like for our community. So our goal here in Lancaster is carbon neutrality by 2040. You might be thinking, why Lancaster? This place has a meaningful scale. It's not too big, it's not too small. 500,000 people here in the county is a sizable amount of people. We're close to all of these major cities and hubs around the East Coast. You know that Lancaster has a really strong brand identity. Anywhere you go, if you say, I'm from Lancaster, people are like, oh, I've been there. I love that place. Lancaster's also demographically representative of many of the US. We're about 1% off from the rural-urban population percentages for the US. I really believe that's one of the critical metrics for how we respond to climate. And then finally, it's not like this would be the first wild thing that Lancaster has ever done. Here we are in a place that has some of the highest density concentration of benefit corporations, highest concentration of refugee resettlement. We're a place that, even though we have a lot of work left to go on water quality, the improvements that we've made here are astonishing. Lancaster's already leading in many interesting ways, and many ways that I think can align with climate as well. So our task ahead of us is to foster bipartisan collaborations that actually work. If you're down on thinking that this is possible, remember Thomas Friedman's New York Times article from 2 or 3 years ago when he came and visited? He's talking about Lancaster being the one place that he can see where a bipartisan future is actually possible. That's us. This is where we could do it. Let's make it happen. We need to implement local climate solutions that create jobs and strengthen local economies. When we think about these big, vast Green New Deal visions at a federal scale, they're exciting, but it's hard for people to understand and comprehend. And how will that affect our community? When we start realizing these visions at a much more local level, where we know the way that community governance works, we have a shot at actually moving things forward. Finally, we need to recognize climate as a force multiplier. So climate is something that could make all of these other challenges harder to deal with, or it could make all of them easier by the way that we work through these challenges. And that's what brings us to tonight. We have 13 amazing speakers that are going to bring visions of why climate is important through the theme and the lens that they're familiar with here in the community. And then they're going to connect that to the future that could be, to the Lancaster in 2040, and why we want to work for that. I think you'll leave here tonight seeing how interconnected all of these different ideas are in our community, and why climate is a thread that weaves them all together. And also, that there's a better Lancaster out there that we can be working for.